Today I wanted to talk to you all about time and specifically about redeeming time. I know that there are times when I feel like I do not have enough time in a day to fit everything into the day that I need to get done. And that could be frustrating, right? Maybe there are times when you feel like you don't have time to do the things that you want to do. Maybe you just get to do the things that you need to do without really getting to relax or to do the things that make you happy, that you're passionate about, that you were put on this earth to do. And so we're going to look at that a little bit. I want to talk to you today from the book of Ephesians, chapter 5, and we're going to be reading from verses 15 to 17. It says here in the King James Version, "See then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is." In my study of redeeming the time and what God says about time, I noticed in this verse in Ephesians 5:15 that it talked about walking circumspectly. And if anyone knows anything about me, they know I'm really huge into vocabulary and words, and I love to express myself in writing and creatively in that way. And so I went to look up the word circumspect. I just wanted to know what it meant and how it implied to this situation. And so circumspect is to give a careful consideration of all circumstances and possible consequences. And so basically it's to consider something well, to be cautious and mindful and safe. And so we know that the opposite of careful is careless. We know that the opposite of mindful is being unmindful. Being the opposite of safe is being unsafe. And as I was studying this and looking this information up, I started to think about my own life and how this applies. And so I know that as a mom, I try to teach my children to forethink or to be proactive rather than reactive in their response to things and in their problem solving. I try to think them to exercise forethought. And so circumspect tended to imply that this is an exercise of forethought. And I thought this is so the heart of God, because we are to walk in a way where we are thinking ahead, where we are being mindful and considering what could possibly go right and what could possibly go wrong in every situation. I believe that that is walking wise and being someone who is using wisdom and not necessarily somebody who is operating in a foolish nature. The Bible is clear that God does not want us to walk as fools, but as wise. And so to do that, He's made it very clear in verse 15 of Ephesians 5 that we are to walk circumspectly, meaning we are consider the way. And that's how we redeem the time. Because in verse 16, it does talk about redeeming the time. It talks about redeeming the time because the days are evil. And so it led me to think about another verse of scripture. And that verse can be found in Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1 through 8. And so here it says, and we're going to focus primarily on verse 1, but I will read verse 1 through verse 8. So in Ecclesiastes 3, verses 1 through 8, it says, "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace." And so, like I said, we're going to focus primarily on verse 1 because that's really where the bulk of this teaching, this moment lies. And so it says, "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven." What that meant for me and how I began to redeem my time and to take back the time that I felt like the enemy has stolen from me was that everything doesn't have to be done today. That's one of the rules of time management, that we focus our day, we focus our time, and we realize that and recognize that not everything has to be done in one day. That's why God gave us life in this journey called life. Because these things were supposed to be spread out. These things can be spread out. God understands life. He understands humans. He created us. So to redeem your time and to allow God to redeem the time means that I go to God first and I ask him, what is this season that I'm in? What is the purpose that I am called to accomplish today? What is your will for this day? And so this week, I want you all to focus on what is God telling you to do and what is he not telling you to do. Every day, make a mental note or make it a habit to go to God in prayer first, to ask him, what is this day supposed to hold? What am I supposed to do? And one more thing, when he tells you what that is, listen, because he's telling you so that you can redeem the time, so that he can redeem the time in your life, so that you're not burdened down by every problem and thinking that you have to say yes to everything, because you don't. That is walking as the wise. That is walking as someone who is using wisdom. So that's your homework for this week. I'll see you all on Friday. Have a blessed week.